tonight on A News at 6.
Barrie's Drive Test Center will reopen its doors on Monday, but only for a select few. We'll tell you who and why. How frustrated are you now?
Well, on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm at a 10.
A Keswick man was found not guilty of manslaughter after accidentally shooting a hiker in a county forest. Tonight, I'll tell you why the people who walk here are still concerned about their safety.
It's a ribbon cutting 21 years in the making, but it's only a partial celebration. Coming up, I'll tell you about the $750 million cloud hanging over Hospice House.
Our shortfall is really important.
A new study suggests that the divorce rate in Canada is going down. We'll tell you what's behind the decline and get some secrets for a long and healthy marriage.
This is A News at 6.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news from our roads. Several police cruisers have been damaged in a chase through Simcoe County. It started late this afternoon in the east end of Barrie when police got a report of a stolen SUV. The chase then headed east toward Horseshoe Valley Road and Oromadonti. Police laid down a spike belt, but the driver got around it. After several vehicles were damaged, police called off the chase because it was too dangerous to continue. But they have officers searching for the suspect. It's believed the driver headed towards Orillia. We have a news crew on this developing story, and we'll have more information for you as it becomes available. Hunters and hikers have to coexist in Simcoe County forests. That's the message a day after a hunter was found not guilty in the shooting death of a 67-year-old grandmother. Roger Klein tells us what changes have been made to ensure walking in those forests will be safer.
Normally stay out of there when we hear the rifles.
Carol Capitan knows when there are hunters in the forest near her home in Nanton Mills. She says the county forest across the street is where she walks her dog every day, except when she thinks there might be a hunter in the area.
Absolutely, we keep it in mind, and yes, we know they're out there. It is a concern because it's so well used.
It was during the hunting season in 2006 that 67-year-old Marianne Schmidt was shot and killed by a hunter while hiking in the county forest in Agila Tasserantio. Yesterday, that hunter walked out of a Barrie courtroom a free man after being found not guilty of manslaughter. After the verdict, even his lawyer says changes are needed in multi-use areas so tragedies don't happen again.
The sad reality is this was a multi-use park that was permitted for hunting as well.
In Simcoe County, signs like this have been put up at trail entrances in county forests to let hikers know that there could be hunters here too.
It was the white pine that were here.
Graham Davis is the man in charge of Simcoe County Forests. He says the warning signs started going up shortly after Schmidt died. He says the plan was in place for the signs before she died and that hunting accidents are extremely rare.
If you look at the history of the county forests and how these different uses have cohabitated for so many years and have done so very successfully, I don't think that one really unfortunate incident changes that. I think if you really step back and look at the numbers and the statistics, all these activities can coexist very safely as they have for many years.
Carl Banting owns a gun shop west of Barrie. He says the public needs more notification about hunting seasons and areas, especially ones that have hiking trails. He says hikers could then take precautions.
So if anybody is walking in the bush during hunting season and they aren't hunting, I'd suggest it'd be a pretty good idea for them to have blaze orange on as well.
And while hunting is still permitted in most county forests, county staff say they are willing to review that policy on a case-by-case basis. In Springwater, Roger Klein, A News.
There's good news tonight for some people in the Barrie area hoping to get a driver's license. Despite the ongoing strike by workers at drive test centers, testing is about to start again. But as Rob Cooper tells us, only a small percentage of those waiting are going to get any help.
I'm just waiting to get my G2, which has been rebooked, I think, 3 times now because of the strike.
17-year-old Kathleen McKenna is behind the wheel with her driving instructor, but McKenna says she's becoming more frustrated as the strike at Ontario's drive test centers drags on. It will be 3 months tomorrow since these doors closed.
They take us through the driving test, and...
So it's an actual in-car test you need to take.
It's an in-car test that the instructors take us on, and if we pass that, then we get to drive in the car without our parents.
Starting this Monday, the Barrie Drive Test Center will partially reopen, joining 6 other locations in the province being staffed by managers. Written tests, road tests for commercial truck drivers, and out-of-province and country license exchanges will be the only services offered. Good news for some, but not for most. So far, about 200,000 people have been affected by the strike.
Do you want to try another downshift down to second gear?
John Pack of Midland is also just a test away from his license. He's trying to become a transport truck driver, and every day that passes is another day out of work for him.
How frustrated are you now, several weeks into the strike?
Well, on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm at a 10.
But Pack says he's been told he does not qualify for the test on Monday because he's received financial help for retraining under the Colleges and Universities program.
They said that my file's sitting on their desk, and they just won't let me, even though they're doing testing, in their opinion, they want the strike to be over.
But the partial opening is good news for Reed Conley, who owns Crossroads Training Academy for truck drivers. He says now that most truck drivers can take their tests, he can get back to business and back to normal after being forced to cut way back.
We've gone from a staff of about 9 down. We've laid off. We've got 1 full-time instructor on staff. So, and the rest of them are all laid off.
The Drive Test Center in Barrie will open on Monday morning, staffed by managers starting at 8:30. More than 100,000 doses of the H1N1 vaccine are being withdrawn across the country after health officials in Manitoba discovered higher than normal allergic reactions from one particular batch. But as Celine Moreau tells us, that news isn't stopping people from lining up to get their shots.
As thousands line up again today to get their H1N1 vaccine, Health Minister Deb Matthews joins the queue, ready to get her shot and ready to prove that there's no reason to be concerned after news that some of the vaccines were pulled off the shelf after a higher than usual number of people experienced adverse reactions in Manitoba.
We've been asked by the manufacturer, GSK, to not use this vaccine at this time.
1,500 doses from that batch were to make their way to the province of Ontario, but never did.
We were able to quickly identify that there might be a problem, and then we were able to track exactly which vaccine was to be put aside, and so it worked really well.
Despite the concerns, Minister Matthews is pleased with how many people like herself have decided to roll up their sleeves.
2.5 million people vaccinated in 3 weeks across the province, which is extraordinary. Never before have we vaccinated so many people in so short a time. It's a tremendous success.
And with H1N1 being such a new virus, it's impossible for health units to say when the virus will peak or die down. So for now, the message remains.
We strongly recommend that if someone hasn't been immunized, they come forward now that we're able to offer it to the general public, because it is the best way to prevent anyone from getting the illness.
Doesn't hurt a bit. It was terrific. The line moved quickly. Somebody came by regularly to tell us how much longer we had to wait. I think I maybe waited 20 minutes. I don't think much more than that. And it didn't hurt a bit.
Celine Moreau, A News.
Meanwhile, the province is making sure hospital intensive care units have what they need to treat people who are very sick with the flu. The provincial government has purchased more than 200 additional ventilators and will be distributing them to hospitals throughout Ontario. The machines are used to help critically ill patients breathe. Officials at the Super Jail in Penetanguishene have confirmed there's been an outbreak of the H1N1 flu at the jail. At the peak of the outbreak, 20 inmates were sick. That number has now dropped to 4. No one had to be admitted to hospital. There will be many clinics open tomorrow for people wanting to get their